This lesson, we're going to actually be combining our major and minor pentatonic scales and a little bit of blues scale to play the changes in a 12-bar blues. When you take a look at, if we're in the key of A, if you look at an A7 chord, which is what the harmony for a typical blues 1 chord is going to be, especially the 12-bar blues, we have this chord voicing where you have your middle finger on the 6th fret 3rd string. That's the major third of the chord right there. But if you look at your minor pentatonic scale that everyone uses for their blues stuff, or even on blues scale, right, we don't have that note right there, which is a C sharp. We have the note below it, which is a C, and we have the note above it. To me, a lot of the blues can be found in the space between these two notes here. You know, you've probably heard people, do that sort of thing before. If I go, doesn't sound very bluesy. That's from the root to the minor third. If I go root to the major third, that doesn't sound very bluesy either. If I go, that has a little bit more blues to it. And all I'm doing is I'm taking that minor third of the scale and I'm kind of pushing it a little bit towards the major third. That gives us kind of the feeling that it'll eventually get in tune. If you overshoot it, that sounds pretty obnoxious. If you're sharp, you're sharp. You're wrong. If you're a little bit flat and you're still heading that direction with the bend, it's still going to sound like you could get there. The ear doesn't hear that as wrong. It just kind of feels a little bit of tension. So anywhere where you have the minor third, that minor pentatonic, you're playing over the dominant chord. You can take that. There's a minor third right there, and just give it a little tweak, a little quarter step there, where you're not bending all the way up to the next note, but you're bending in between. All right, and you're going to get a little bit more of a bluesier sound than if you're just. See, that one sounded a little bit bluesier than. Alright, so just use your ears, make sure it sounds cool, but wherever you've got the minor third in the minor pentatonic or in the blues scale, go ahead and give it a little tweak every once in a while. It's going to sound cool. Now, other instruments that don't have the ability to bend, like piano, for instance, obviously they still play blues piano, but it doesn't sound quite the same. What they'll do is they'll approach the major third of that dominant chord from a half step below. And that gets you a lot of really cool licks where, like, if we're dealing with the A7 arpeggio, the notes that are in an A7 scale, what you're going to have, root, major third, perfect fifth, minor seventh, root up here. And if you go minor third to major third, and then kind of trace our way down the scale, you get kind of a neat lick like that, where basically you're just playing all the notes in the arpeggio, but you're starting each note phrase, I guess, with the minor third of the third. And if you've done any of the other solos, the blues solos that I've done for these lessons, you've probably seen like that sort of lick, and that's the same idea. Basically, what we're doing is we're making this scale. Whether it's a blues or a minor pentatonic, we're making it fit the chord a little bit better. It sounds a little bit nicer. So that's one approach to dealing with the 1 chord. Obviously, if we're playing over the 4 chord in the key of A, in this case it's a D7. The D7 has a C natural and a D natural in it. That happens to be the root, and that's the minor 7th of the chord. So we're not going to play that C sharp in there. It's going to sound really like that kind of sound, which we don't necessarily want. Alright, now one way that you can play the changes or play notes that work better with each chord is if you're taking a 12-bar blues and you're playing a major pentatonic scale, or you're playing the notes of that major or dominant 7th chord over the 1 chord, and then you can play the minor pentatonic or blues scale over the 4 chord, it's going to sound a little bit more like it. I can take an idea like this, like total B.B. King kind of deal, where I'm playing major pentatonic here in A, and we're going to have just this 4-note box here out of the major pentatonic scale, and then bend up a whole step to the C sharp. And then when it goes to the 4 chord for a quick change, very minor, and then we're going to play that C sharp to bring it back to the 1 chord. What I just played was a set of phrases that could work over the first 3 bars of a 12-bar blues. We have here, it's going to be kind of a little sample solo, and we're going to go over to lick at a time, and then I'll play the whole thing. But just keep in mind that each of these licks kind of has a place over the 12-bar blues chord progression. And part of the reason why they have to be in those places is because a lot of the licks that we're going to play over the 1 chord are going to have that major third in them. Alright, so the very first lick, alright, that's bending up to the major third up there. And then the second lick over the 2nd bar, which is over a D7 chord, total minor pentatonic. And then I'm going to end on that major third right there. And what I'm doing is that in the first 3 measures we had the 1 chord, and then the second measure where I just played that lick we have the 4 chord, so that's a minor scale. And then the 3rd measure we're going back to the 1 chord, and what I did was I ended that phrase in a note that sounds real nice over the 1 chord, so it really makes the change happen. Alright, so the first 2 bars, or 3 bars, 2, 3, 4. Alright, that right there, you know, you've heard blues players play that all the time. I'm taking the notes on the 2nd and 4th strings at the 7th fret. And just sliding them down chromatically to the 5th fret, or 1 fret at a time. Yeah, it's kind of a nice thing to stick in there at the end of a phrase. Now we get to the 5th measure where we have a 4 chord, and this is going to be all minor pentatonic. Total minor pentatonic scale phrase. I'm bending the 3rd string, 7th fret, a whole step, and then on the 5th fret, 2nd and 1st strings, and then bending a whole step on the 2nd string, 8th fret, and then 8th and 5 on the 2nd string, and then back to the 7th fret, 3rd string, bend and then release, and then that's the minor third right there. So those notes really outline that D7 chord. And then so the next bar of the phrase, really another really minor pentatonic scale lick, which works real good over that D. So I'm bending the 7th fret, 3rd string again, and then 5 on the 2nd string, 5 on the 1st string, 8 on the 1st string, 5 on the 1st string, 5 on the 2nd string, 7 on the 3rd string, 5 on the 2nd string, 5 on the 3rd string, 7 on the 4th string, which is also our root here in the A minor scale. I'm kind of going through this stuff. This lesson doesn't necessarily stand on its own if you don't know your major and minor pentatonic scales. I would really recommend, as I'm going through this, I'm kind of thinking about the fact that anybody who hasn't done any of the lessons I've posted about major and minor pentatonic scales really should go back and do that stuff now, and this will make a lot more sense. It's one of those things where if you don't, you're going to have some trouble understanding it, and if I try and cover all that information in this one lesson, this is going to be like a 40-minute lesson.